Let me go ahead and open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the public that would like to come up to the microphone and speak, now would be a good time to do that. And keep in mind, these are recorded.
I brought a little packet to pass out to you, but I'll read my little statement.
Okay, if we can have Tiffany maybe help you pass those out.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak here. I'm just going to read this so I won't get off topic or anything. Thank you for all of your hard work and for representing the public of New Mexico regarding lands. Without your guardianship and your voice, we are left out of the equation on the life and death issues that are LANL. I'm asking for recommendations to LANL, and secondly, I'm asking for information about long-term stewardship and recent or ongoing land transfers. Bechtel, with a history of infractions regarding public welfare, always asks for the majority of its budget, 97%, to go for nuclear weapons production. We know that there are 20,000 plutonium pits at Pantex and another 1,500 a mile from the airport in Albuquerque. According to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, these pits will be usable for 150 years. There are also 13.1 metric tons of surplus plutonium pit material that must be disposed of. There are enough nuclear bombs when one pit can kill 120,000 citizens in the blink of an eye, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Today, one pit is even 10 times more powerful. Even these pits are not usable when morality, international law, or human rights are taken into consideration. But Bechtel continues to make insane profits, producing more weapons of mass destruction at the expense of the public safety in New Mexico. There is an enormous profit to be made in continuing to produce useless nuclear bombs, and corporations have no conscience. Billions in profits is the bottom line. It has recently come out that the PF4 is extremely vulnerable to an earthquake. The Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board recent letter cites a 900 rem dose to the exposed population as a worst-case scenario in the event of a quake and resulting fire at PF4. We know from past fires, Cerro Grande and Las Conchas, and independent monitoring, that plutonium and other dangerous radionuclides have traveled in smoke at least as far as Truchas Peak. I even had to escape the fire because I'm sensitive to the smoke, and I couldn't get out of the smoke from that last fire until I was beyond Silverton. So this is how far this stuff is traveling. 900 rems is double the lethal dose expected to cause death to 50% of an exposed population within 30 days. This is shocking and an unacceptable situation. New Mexico has seen 3 or 4 earthquakes in the past 2 years, 2 centered in Coyote and Tezuque, very near to Los Alamos. And I have some data in your packet about the earthquakes. The devastating wildfire that came within 3.5 miles of TA-55 is another example of the high danger. Even though Lands has known of the deficiencies and danger to the public at least as far back as 2008, their priorities have been to pursue more funding for the proposed CMRRNF to produce more nuclear bombs. The sensible thing to do when so many of our lives are put at grave risk is to employ thousands of workers in a safe and complete cleanup of LANL. PF4 must be dismantled and decontaminated. Quote, the large plutonium inventory of PF4 coupled with the facility's proximity to the public creates the potential for very high off-site dose consequences if the building were to collapse, says the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board. We cannot stand idly by when a catastrophe is in the wings. We cannot let for-profit lands continue to endanger our lives in the pursuit of profit. We, the public, do not have a voice. You are the Citizens Advisory Board. You have a responsibility to the public to influence the decision-making process on our behalf. Please recommend that the PF4 be dismantled and cleaned up. Request that funding go to cleanup, not nuclear weapons production. It is urgent that you think outside the box and find a way to make a difference. Secondly, in light of the fact that part of your mission is long-term stewardship, I would like information on the 1,400 acres of LANL property that were scheduled to be transferred by the end of 2012 to the Pueblo of San Ildefonso and the national parks. Also, the 884 acres in Sandia Canyon included in this year's planned transfers. I understand that the NNMCAB members were very impressed with the Rocky Flats tour and the Office of Legacy Management. The trouble is, plutonium and other contaminants are invisible. To many people who live in the area, the Rocky Flats cleanup was a cover-up, kind of like the cap and cover, hide and hope plans. High levels of contaminants were left 3 feet under the surface. Rodents, insects, animals, and erosion are bringing these long-lived contaminants to the surface where they blow in the wind to be inhaled by unsuspecting passers-by. Cancer levels in the area are phenomenal. Rather than cleaning up to background levels, the level of cleanup was downgraded by converting the buffer zone to a wildlife area. Long-term stewardship was transferred to an agency whose main concern and expertise is regarding invasive weeds, not lethal contamination. We can't let that happen here. I would like information on the specific levels of cleanup and the institutional controls that are being administered on these transferred lands and any others that have already been transferred. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm providing a packet of information that I hope that you will take the time to read. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but did you introduce yourself to the...
Yes, I'm Jean Green. Excuse me.
And you're with?
I'm in Taos, New Mexico. I'm a citizen.
Okay, and I've got a couple of questions for you. Just for the sake of membership, can you speak a little bit about what PF4 is?
PF4 is the building where I believe they store a lot of plutonium. Did you see the letter from the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board?
We just got it now. We haven't had.
Oh, you just got it now. Well, it really gives a warning that the building could easily collapse in the case of an earthquake. So there is a copy of that in there too, the recent letter, but they have been sending them letters since 2008 about this. And what 900 rems of plutonium being released on the population means is for 450 rems, within 30 days, 50% of the population would be dead. And this is 900 rems, double that. So as soon as we have an earthquake, we may as well just kiss the planet goodbye. And this is not acceptable. We need for you to intervene for us because the public doesn't have a voice here. You're our only voice with LANL. So I'm asking you to make a recommendation regarding that.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention. In terms of the 1,400 LANL acres to transfer to Sanai, can you be more specific? Do you know which
I just read that in your minutes, meeting minutes a few meetings ago.
I wonder if
And
that's part of area
it's a-
TA21 or?
It's a land transfer.
Yeah. We'll have to look into that because this is the first I see of that, and I don't know exactly which acreage that you're speaking about. Or the 884 of Sandia Canyon. I'm not sure which piece of property that would be.
Mhm. Well, when you do look into it, would you get back to me about it? I'd like to know the level of cleanup before they're transferring the property, because as far as what happened at Rocky Flats, a lot of people are really, really concerned with the contamination that's still left there. So that's why I would like that information.
Okay, we will definitely do that.
Thank you very much.
Members, any questions for Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Nana?
What are the references for the high levels of cancer rate in the area around Rocky Flats?
Well, you can read Kristen Iverson's book, Full Body Burden, and there are other accounts. You can go to Leroy Moore's website, the Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center. There was a lot of opposition to them just transferring that land as it is, with that 35 picocuries in the first 3 per gram of soil in the first 3 feet, and below that from 1,000 to 7,000 per gram of soil that they left there, and below that, who knows how much. I mean, there can be any amount below that, and I know prairie dogs will dig down 16 feet, and 11% of the property there is affected by the prairie dogs bringing this up to the surface where it can blow in the wind, and you get 1.01 micron of that in your lung, and you're going to die. So it's a lot of people are really upset about what happened there, and we don't want that to happen here. If it's being transferred to San Ildefonso Pueblo, it needs to be clean, you know, and instead of giving a long-term stewardship to other organizations like towns and counties that have no experience in this type of contamination. They're talking about putting deed restrictions on land that's transferred so that you can't dig below 2 feet. Well, as soon as that county official is gone and the next one is there, this information, which, you know, plutonium has life of being radioactive for 240,000 years. And we're talking about transferring land to people who might be an official for a year or two, and then someone else comes in, and the information is not being carried over even for a generation, not to mention 240,000 years. I think people have no idea how dangerous plutonium is and the other radionuclides that we're being exposed to.
I could be mistaken, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph, but I think any land that transfers has to be clean to residential standards. Is that correct?
It doesn't have to be. They depends on what the final corrective measures action plan designates for each area. It could be industrial or commercial or residential.
I see.
And at Rocky Flats, they lowered the standards so that they could just put a wildlife refuge and they wouldn't have to clean it up as much, because it's only an exposure, you know, once a year or something. But if a child has a skinned knee and goes there to visit, they could die. They could die, and there are no signs, you know. And I and others are really concerned about what's going to happen here. with Rocky Flats, I mean with Lano, because they are going to be looking at stewardship. They're already looking at long-term stewardship. You know, we don't need any more nuclear bombs, obviously, and they want to continue their mission because they'll make a profit. There's a lot more profit in making nuclear bombs that can't be used than there is in cleaning up. But we don't need any more nuclear bombs, and we want it cleaned up so that we can live. I mean, there's a lot of cancer already in our own area, especially the Pueblos.
Allison?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is that on?
Yeah, can hear you.
I think so.
Okay, good. You've talked about PF4, and you talked about Rocky Flats, and you talked about the CNI land transfer. And in the introduction of your comments, you say you're asking for the CAB to make a recommendation to LANL. And I just wanted to be as clear as possible, because a lot of times we hear stuff and then we'll discuss and have feedback in subsequent meetings, and maybe what we come up with isn't perceived as exactly on the mark. So I'm just asking you specifically, the recommendation. I believe we make our recommendations to DOE.
That's correct.
Not to LANL, but to DOE. That's who we're authorized to speak to. So what is the specific recommendation you would like to PF4? And are there two recommendations you would like, and specifically what are they?
Well, you know, since this information has come out about the earthquake danger, I mean, even in their reports, they're saying that sheetrock is going to hold up to an earthquake and hold in this contamination, which is impossible. Sheetrock is like chalk covered with paper. So the DOE knows about PF4. I mean, this DNFSB paper
And what you'd like to say to DOE
is that PF4 needs to be dismantled. They need to get all of that plutonium out of here. If there's an earthquake, it's going to kill all of us. We can't put up with that for a profit-making corporation. You know, and they're asking for money to shore up the building, but it's, yeah, dismantling, decontamination. That's specifically, yeah, thank you. And then the other request was information on the land transfers.
Joy?
Thank you.
Ms. Green, have you ever toured that PF4 building?
No.
Okay. Have you seen how the pits are stored?
No.
Do you
I've
think
seen
maybe
pictures
that-
of
do you
the
think maybe
pits.
they're stored in vaults that are probably built better than a chalkboard wall?
I'm just going according to what the Defense National Facilities Safety Board is saying and warning about. I have not toured the facility. I'm not an expert on building construction. I'm going on what the agency that is trying to protect us has said to LANL and NNSA.
I'm real concerned about the monies that we pay, our taxpayers' money. We pay an enormous amount of money to protect our environment because of environmentalists that have, in the past years, just come out with information that may be true or may not be true. I listened to your comments, and I wanna take them all in. But if you don't have, if you haven't even toured the building and you're telling us that this building should be taken down and dismantled, I mean, how do you know it's not? These pits aren't in a vault, a steel vault that doesn't matter how big the earthquake is. It wouldn't release anything.
If the Defense Nuclear Safety Board is concerned, then I'm concerned.
Okay. Do you think your concerns are also fueled by your passion against nuclear weapons?
I don't don't really know how to answer that. I don't believe nuclear weapons are necessary, but we have, like I said, 20,000 pits at Pantex. I don't see the need for more nuclear weapons.
Okay.
I'm concerned about my health and the health of the women and children and elderly and men that live in New Mexico, and I'm concerned that a catastrophe like this is going to be very devastating for New Mexico.
If I listened to all the information that is disseminated in society today, mainly by our mainstream media, I would be paranoid to no ends of the earth. So I've got to sit here as a CAB member and discriminate between what information is good information and what isn't. And I'll tell you, you'd have a lot more credibility with me if you toured that building and you could tell me what.
I'm afraid to.
Okay? No.
I don't think that would give me the information about the structure of the building either, and plutonium is invisible. I mean, the radiation is invisible.
Well, I know for a fact that the people that work in those buildings do carry dosimetry badges, and they're tested constantly for radiation.
That's really
And
good,
obviously, they're pretty safe, especially today.
unless an earthquake hits.
Do you know how many earthquakes occur in New Mexico each year?
We had 3 or 4 in the last 2 years.
No, we've got probably hundreds, maybe thousands a year that occur in New Mexico each year. Our faults are always moving along each other constantly. They're not building up the energy like they do in California. See, we have a lot of earthquakes that are releasing that energy. So that means that our faults our earthquakes aren't going to be anything like the earthquakes that are in the San Andreas Valley and places like that. Do you
I would
understand
really
that?
encourage you to talk to the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board, because they are the experts and they are concerned. They have toured the building, I'm sure.
Nana?
Yeah, Ed or Manise or someone, could you tell us exactly what the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board is and what sorts of people are on it? And also, how would a member of the public arrange to have a tour of PF4, which I believe is, requires a security clearance or an escort to get in?
Not an expert in this area, but I do know that from what I've read, the folks that are on the Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board are like the top of the class. They're scientists and regarded individuals.
I mean, they're not like us, just a citizens
No,
board. They're
a board of
professional
experts.
board.
Yeah. Touring PF4, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the facility, I'm sorry to say. I can find out about it, though, and see if that is a possibility. What was your other question, John? I'm sorry.
Oh, those were the two.
Okay.
We'll entertain one more question, and then we'll have to move on. But keep in mind, folks, that this board is chartered to address legacy and Cold War cleanup. Okay? Allison?
Yeah. Ms. Green, it was really a housekeeping item. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to come to this body, and you put together a good deal of information that gives us the ability to explore further as we need. And I appreciate you being part of the process.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope that you will take these considerations to heart and look into it and contact the DNFSB. They're a major agency that oversights the nuclear weapons productions facilities. So thank you very much for listening. Appreciate that.
We'll have staff look up the transfer of property as well. Is there anybody else in the public that wants to stand up and say something? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move on.